Hey everyone, I'm Kevin and I lead product at OpenAI. Today we're here to talk developers and agents. And in particular, we're excited to launch a bunch of new tools that make it easy for developers to build reliable and useful agents. Now, when we say agent, we mean a system that can act independently to do tasks on your behalf. And we've launched 2 agents this year in ChatGPT. The first is Operator, which can browse the web and do things for you on the web. The second is Deep Research, which can create detailed reports for you on any topic you want. So you give it a topic, and it can go off and do what might be a week's worth of research for you and come back with an answer in 15 minutes. The feedback for those has been fantastic. But we want to now launch those tools and more in the API to developers. So we've spent the last couple months going around talking to developers all over the world about how we can make it easy for them to build agents. And what we've heard is that the models are ready. So with advanced reasoning, with multimodal understanding, our models can now do the kind of complex multi-step workflows that agents need. But on the other hand, developers feel like they're having to cobble together different low-level APIs from different sources. It's difficult, it's slow, it often feels brittle. So today we're really excited to bring that together into a series of tools and a new API and an open source SDK to make this a lot easier. So with that, let me introduce the team.
Yeah, hi, I'm Ilan. I'm an engineer on the developer experience team.
I'm Steve. I'm an engineer on the API team.
And I'm Nikunj. I work on the API product team. So let's dive into all the stuff that we're launching today. Like Kevin mentioned, we have 3 new built-in tools. We have a new API and an open source SDK. Starting off with the built-in tools, the first tool that we're announcing today is called the Web Search tool. The Web Search tool allows our models to access information from the internet so that your responses and the output that you get is up-to-date and factual. The Web Search tool is the same tool that powers ChatGPT Search, and it's powered by a fine-tuned model under the hood. So this is the fine-tuned GPT-4o or 4o mini that is really good at looking at large amounts of data retrieved from the web, finding the relevant pieces of information, and then clearly citing it in its response. In a benchmark that measures these type of things, which is called Simple QA, you can see that GPT-4o hits a high score of state-of-the-art score of 90%. So that's the first tool. Steve, do you want to tell us about the second one?
Yeah, the second tool is actually my favorite tool, and this is the File Search tool. Now, we launched the File Search tool last year in the Assistance API as a way for developers to upload, chunk, embed their documents, and then RAG really easily over those documents. Now, we're really excited to be launching 2 new features in the File Search tool today. The first is metadata filtering. So with metadata filtering, you can add attributes to your files to be able to easily filter them down to just the ones that are the most relevant for your query. The second is a direct search endpoint. So now you can directly search your vector stores without your queries being filtered through the model first.
Nice. So you have web search for the public data, file search for the private data that you have. And then the third tool that we are launching is the computer use tool. The computer use tool is Operator in the API, but it allows you to control the computers that you are operating. So this could be a virtual machine. It could be a legacy application that just has a graphical user interface and you have no API access to it. If you want to automate those kind of tasks and build applications on that, you can use the computer use tool, which comes with the computer use model. So this is the same model that is used by Operator in ChatGPT. It has SOTA benchmarks on OS World, Web Arena, Web Voyager. Early user feedback on the Kua model and the tool has been super, super positive. So I'm really excited to see what all of you build with it. All right, so those are the 3 tools. And while we were building these tools and thinking of getting them out, we also wanted to take a first principles approach at designing the best API for these tools. We released chat completions, I think, in March 2023 alongside GPT 3.5 Turbo. And every single API interaction at that time was just text in and text out. Since then, we've introduced multimodality. So you have images, you have audio. We are introducing tools today. And you also have products like O1 Pro, Deep Research, Operator that make these multiple model turns and multiple tool calls behind the scenes. So we wanted to build an API primitive that is flexible enough. It supports multiple turns. It supports tools. And we're calling this new API the Responses API. And to show you the Responses API, I'm going to hand it over to Steve.
Cool. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Responses API. So if you've used chat completions before, this will look really familiar to you. You select some context, you pick a model, and you get a response.
It's pretty simple.
It's pretty simple, and it's always hilarious. So
Maybe not.
maybe
I
not.
don't know.
So to demonstrate the power of the Responses API, we're going to be building sort of a personal stylist assistant. So let's start off by giving it some instructions. You are a personal stylist.
You're only typing in front of like 50,000 people right now. Don't worry about it.
Cool. And we'll say, we'll get rid of this, and we'll say, what are some of the latest trends?
The joke's in the context.
The joke is in the context. Let's see what it says. OK, cool. Great. But no personal stylist assistant is complete unless it understands what its users like. So in order to demonstrate this, we've created a vector store that has some like some entries, almost some diary entries of what people on the team have been wearing. We've kind of been.
That's not weird at all.
It's not weird at all. I would just let it happen. We've kind of been following people around the office and kind of like understanding what they've been up to. So yeah. There's a team. There's a team on it. Yeah. So I'll go ahead and add the file search tool, and I'll copy in my vector store ID. And here I can actually filter down the files in this vector store to just the ones that are relevant to the person that we want to style. So in this case, let's start with Ilan. We'll go ahead and filter down to his username. Yeah. And we'll come back here, and we'll refresh. And we'll say, can you briefly summarize what Ilan likes to wear?
I often ask ChatGPT this question.
Yeah, but it never knows, and now it can actually tell you what Ilan likes to wear. Cool, so Ilan has a distinct and consistent style characterized by Miami chic. That's really awesome. So the file search tool is a great way to bring information about your users into your application. But in order to be able to create a really good application for this personal stylist, we want to be able to bring in fresh data from around the web so that we have both the newest information and also stuff that's really relevant to your users. So in order to demonstrate that, I'll add the web search tool. Cool. The web search tool is really great because you can also add data about like where your user is. So let's try with somebody else. Kevin, are you happen to be taking any trips anytime soon?
Let's say Tokyo.
OK, cool. Tokyo. So I'll put in Tokyo here. And we'll swap in Kevin. And the Responses API is really cool because it can do multiple things at once. It can call a file search tool, it can call the web search tool, and it can give you a final answer just in one API response. So in order to tell it exactly what we want, let's give it some instructions. And it'd be good if I knew how to code well. Great.
You say you're an engineer here.
Yeah, well, I'm in training. So what we want the model to do is when it's asked to recommend products, we want it to use the file search tool to understand what Kevin likes, and then use the web search tool to find a store near him where he can buy something that he might be interested in. So let's go back and say, find me a jacket that I would like nearby. And what the model will do is it will issue a file search tool call to understand what kinds of things Kevin likes to wear. And then it will issue a web search tool call to then go and find stuff that Kevin would like based on where he is. So the model was able to, just in the scope of one API call, find a bunch of Patagonia stores in Tokyo.
Just for you, Kevin.
Which actually corresponds to Kevin's preferences. He's been wearing a lot of Patagonia around the office. So, but no personal stylist assistant would be complete unless it could actually go and make purchases on your behalf. So in order to do that, let's demonstrate the computer use tool. So we'll go ahead and add this. We're using the computer use preview model and the computer use preview tool. And we will ask, help me find my friend Kevin a new Patagonia jacket. What's your favorite color, Kevin?
Let's go with black.
Black. Can't have too many black Patagonia jackets. And what the model will do is it will ask us for a screenshot. And we have a Docker container running locally on this computer. And we will go ahead and send that screenshot to the model. It will look at the state of the computer and issue another action. Click, drag, move, type. And then we will execute that action, take another screenshot, send it back to the model, and then it will continue in this fashion until it feels that it's completed the task, and then return a final answer. So while this is kind of going and doing its thing, we'll hand it back to Nikunj.
Yeah, awesome. So these are some really cool tools and a really flexible API for you to build agents, and you have amazing building blocks to do that now. But for those of you who have built more complex applications, like say you're building a customer support agent, it's not always about just having one agent that's sort of the personal stylist. You also have some agentic application that's doing your refunds. You have another thing that's answering customer support FAQ queries. You have something else that's dealing with orders and billing, et cetera. And to make these applications easy to build, we released an SDK last year called Swarm. And Swarm made it easy to do agent orchestration. This was supposed to be an experimental and educational thing, but so many of you took it to production anyway. So you're like forcing our hand over here. and so we've decided to take Swarm and make it production ready, add a bunch of new features, and we're going to be rebranding it to be called the Agents SDK. Ilan built Swarm and helped build it, so I'm going to hand it over to him to tell you more about how it works.
Yeah, thanks, Nikunj. Yeah, so in my time at OpenAI, I've spent a lot of time working with enterprises and builders to help them build out agentic experiences. And I've seen firsthand how pretty simple ideas can actually grow in complexity, like when you actually go to implement them. And so the idea with the Agents SDK is to keep simple ideas simple to implement while allowing you to build more complex and robust ideas still in a pretty straightforward and simple way. So let's take a look at what Steve had before in the demo, but implemented using the Agents SDK. It's going to look very similar at first. We have our agent defined here. We have some instructions. And we also have both of the tools, file search tool, web search tool, that we had before.
Is this using responses under the hood?
Yeah, so by default, this is using the responses API, but we actually support multiple vendors. Anything that really fits the chat completions shape can work with the Agents SDK.
Nice.
So during the practice runs, we actually accidentally ordered many Patagonias. So I'm sorry, we're gonna have to.
I don't understand. What's the problem?
We're helping you here. We want to return some of them, and so to do that, I could usually just add in a returns tool and add more to this prompt and get it to work. But the problem with that is you start to mix all of this business logic, which makes your agents a little bit harder to test. And so this is the power of multiple agents, is you can actually separate your concerns and develop and test them separately. So to do so, let's actually introduce an agent specifically to deal with this sorts of returns. So I'm going to load mine in. And great, so we still have our agent from before. But you can see there's also this new agent, the customer support agent here. And I've defined a couple tools for it to use, the get past orders, and then submit refund request. And you might notice these are just regular Python functions, as this is actually a feature that people really loved in Swarm that we brought over to the Agents SDK, which is we'll take your Python functions and look at the type inference or look at the type signatures and then automatically generate the JSON schema that the models need to use to perform those function calls. And then once they do, we actually run the code and then return the results. So you can just define these functions as they are. Now, I've given them, now we have our two agents, right? We have the stylist agent and we have the customer support refunds agent. So how do we interact with both of them as a user? This is where the notion of handoffs come in. And a handoff is actually a pretty simple idea that's pretty powerful. And it's when you have one conversation where one agent is handling it, and then it hands it off to another, where you keep the entire conversation the same, but behind the scenes, you just swap out the instructions and the tools. And this gives you a way to triage conversations and load in the correct context for each part of the conversation. So what we've done here is created this triage agent that can hand off to the stylist agent or the customer support agent. So enough talking, let's actually see this in action. So I'm gonna save and do, I think we may have ordered one too many Patagonias. Can you help me return?
I don't understand.
I know, I'm so sorry. I can get you one later. So what just happened here is it started off by transferring, remember we're starting with the triage agent, to the customer support agent. And this is just a function call that I'll show you in a second. And then the customer support agent proactively called the get past orders function where we can see all of Kevin's Patagonias. I think you'll be okay. Cool. So To actually see what happened behind the scenes, usually you might need to add some debugging statements by hand. But one of the things that the Agents SDK brings right out of the box is monitoring and tracing. So I'm going to go over to the tracing UI that we have on our platform to actually take a look what just happened. So these are some of the previous runs that we've had. I'm just refreshing the page. And we can see the last one. And this last one, you can actually see exactly what happened. We started with a triage agent, which we sent a request to, made a handoff, and then switched over to the customer support agent, which called the function. Now, we can see what the original input was. And handoffs are first-class objects in this dashboard. So you can see not only which agent we actually handed it off to, but any that it had as options that it did not, which is actually a really useful feature for debugging. Afterward, once we're in the customer support agent, you can see the get past orders function call with any input params. Here there were none. And then the output is just, again, just all of Kevin's very monotonous history. And then finally, we can get to the end where you get a response. And so these are some of the features that you get right out of the box with the Agents SDK. There's a few more. We also have built-in guardrails that you can enable. We have lifecycle events. And importantly, this is an open source framework. So we're going to keep building it out, and you can install it very soon or right now. So you can just do pip install OpenAI --agents, and we'll have one for the JavaScript coming soon. But to close this off, let's actually perform the refund. So you know what? I'm sorry, Kevin. Get rid of all of them.
Oh. What am I going to wear?
Kevin's going to be cold.
Yeah, let's see. It's a lot of them. There we go.
It takes a while to return so many categories.
Yeah.
And so what happens under the hood? How do you debug this? How do you understand more about what's going on?
Yeah. So that we can all do back in the tracing UI. So this is a pretty nice, straightforward way to build out these experiences. Yeah. Nikunj,
Awesome.
Pass it back to you.
I'm so excited for all of you to have access to all of these tools. And before we wrap up, I wanted to make 2 additional points. First, we've introduced the Responses API, but the Chat Completions API is not going away. We're going to continue supporting it with new models and capabilities. There will be certain capabilities that require built-in tool use, and there'll be certain models and agentic products that we release in the future that will require them, and those will be available in Responses API only. Responses API features are a superset of what chat completion support. So whenever you decide to migrate over, it should be a pretty straightforward migration to you. And we hope you love the developer experience of responses because we put a lot of thought into that. The second point I wanted to make was around the Assistance API. We built the Assistance API based on all the great feedback that we got from all of our beta users. And we wouldn't be here without all of the learnings that we had during the Assistance API phase. We are going to be adding more features to the Responses API so that it can support everything that the Assistance API can do. And once that happens, we'll be sharing a migration guide that makes it really easy for all of you to migrate your applications from Assistance to Responses without any loss of functionality or data. We'll give you ample time to move things over, and once we're done with that, we plan to sunset the Assistance API sometime in 2026. We'll be sharing a lot more details about this offline as well. But yeah, that's it for me. I'll hand it over to Kevin to wrap us up.
Awesome. Well, we're super excited to announce the Responses API and the idea that we can take a single powerful API and bring together a whole bunch of different tools, from reg and file search to web search to Kua and our operator computer use APIs. Now, you can count on us to continue building powerful new models and bring more intelligence, to bring more powerful tools to help you build better agents. 2025 is going to be the year of the agent. It's the year that ChatGPT and our developer tools go from just answering questions to actually doing things for you out in the real world. We're super excited about that. We're just getting started. We know you are too, and we can't wait to see what you build.
All right. Give me 1 second.
Today we're here to talk to
All right, so that was pretty cool. Obviously this isn't like a 10 out of 10 exciting, although I am pretty excited about the fact that they're allowing us to use the OpenAI operator now on the API through the tool use. So, which I think still to this day, that's the one thing where it's absolutely better than anything else on the market as far as I can tell. Because most places like Manus, they use an open source vision to navigate the browser. Does anybody remember what that one's called? So it's the one you briefly, in the video that I had on Manus, you briefly see it. It kind of has these bounding boxes around all the different UI elements in the browser. And somebody mentioned that that was an open source, like open browser or something like that. So does anybody know what that tool is, what Manus uses for their vision? But the point is, OpenAI, their version of it, browser use, is that what it's called? Is that the name of the actual thing that they use? Okay, browser use, it sounds like. Okay, cool. So it sounds like OpenAI is going to be giving us the API for their browser thing, operator. And that one, according to their benchmarks, it's the state of the art. State of the art, best in terms of, so basically most of these tools they're kind of like built in, they're sort of like identifying certain UI elements within the browser and they're clicking on those. OpenAI operator is different in that it uses true sort of vision and mouse commands to interact with it. And it's better than, or at least as good as, the other stuff that's using those little like hooks and stuff like that to operate the browser, which is pretty exciting. So I definitely want to mess around with that. Is it free? No. So it's probably going to have some sort of an API cost per use or whatever. I doubt that it's going to be expensive because, it's probably going to be expensive if you're like running it 24 hours a day, but that thing should be pretty, browser uses screenshots. Yeah, no, it's not going to be free. I think maybe Whisper is the only free thing on there, if I recall correctly. Their Whisper software, the transcription software. Yeah, so Manus, a lot of people, man, it's causing a lot of emotions because people are selling it's nonsense. It's just API calls. It's just this. It's just that. The point is, it's good. It's very good. It's very effective. However they put it together, it works. It's also, as you can see, it's probably pushing OpenAI to release some of their stuff earlier. So it's probably moving up those kind of timelines. And also, if it is just a wrapper with a bunch of like clever sort of API calls and stuff like that put together, that means we're going to be seeing a lot more of similar things soon, which is phenomenal for us. So I got to say, big thanks to Manus. So I talked to a few people on their team. There's the three guys that are like developers. Then there's like an investor that's also been, we just talk on X, just very, very briefly. So I don't know too much about them, but I'm pretty impressed with what they're doing. Yeah, and so Shervin, like he's saying, competition is always good. Open source competition keeps the market in check. That's exactly right. So whenever somebody drops something powerful that's open source, that puts pressure on everybody else to compete, to release stuff, to do better. So Manus is excellent for both what it can do, but also the effect that it has on the ecosystem. So definitely, phenomenal job for the team. So yeah, I don't really have a budget. Like I'm happy to, I guess there's some upper limit to how much I'm willing to spend on the API, but like I don't have a number in mind. So very cool. Norman Robinson, welcome. Thank you for being here from the Bermuda Islands. So okay, who here has had a chance to test out Claude Coder? So one of the things in my video that I did about Manus is I had it write a little sort of documentation about how to set up Linux on your computer. You know, how to use Rufus to do a USB drive to boot it from the USB drive, to set up the Ubuntu distribution, so basically open source operating system, and then how to use the Claude Coder, how to install it, and then how to use that to clone various GitHub repos. Because what I found that it's very good at, for people that don't have as much experience working with code and GitHub and everything else, working with the command line, Claude Coder is a godsend. It's absolutely phenomenal because it does a lot of the heavy lifting for you. And I was blown away because Manus was extremely good at writing out the documentation for how to use Claude Coder. That's not available on the internet. And I was like, in my video, there's like a whole minute where I'm just like, how is it doing this? But it sounds like we have our answer, and that is that it sounds like it's running on Claude 3.7. So I definitely want to dive deeper into Manus because, you know, it's very good, but it also seems like it's not that they have some proprietary, super special secret sauce. I'm sure they figured out a lot of cool things, cool hacks, cool ways to put it all together, but also it's very possible. So somebody said that Open Manus, or whatever they're calling it, the open source version of Manus, is very good. So one of the things that I want to be doing is actually compare the two side by side, because I was blown away by Manus. If there's an open source version of it, oh my God, that would be a game changer. That would be huge. I think that, but yeah, so the reason why Code Nerdette, Claude 3.7 Thinker is actually really good for documentation. Yeah, so in the particular case where I was testing it, so I was blown away by the fact that it was able to document stuff for Claude Coder that well that was not available on the internet. And it just seemed like it somehow figured stuff out that the information wasn't available. And I was trying to figure out how it did that. Like I was genuinely like confused about how it was able to do it. I almost considered like, did it install a version of Claude Coder on its like virtual machine that it operates and then interact with it to learn from it? Like that's where my mind was going. But now I realize since Claude 3.7 was the thing that was like operating behind the scenes, obviously that's the same thing that's operating Claude Coder. So it knows how Claude Coder would behave because it is basically Claude Coder through an API call. So yeah, there's a lot of different funny names that people are considering how to call the open source version of Manus, and none of them are sort of appropriate. But let me think. So first of all, let me pull up Manus, and I'll kind of show you. So what I had to do is I had to create a universal paperclips game. Does everybody know what that is? It was this. I think Eliezer Yudkowsky has something to do with it somehow, or maybe he just like promoted that game or something like that. It's a free incremental game. It's just an HTML game where basically the idea is that we give this self-improving AI, we just say, okay, go make paper clips, right? And then the game is basically how the thing goes out of control, eventually converting every molecule of matter in the entire universe into paper clips. So I was trying to see if Manus was able to sort of replicate that. And it did. It created, 5 stages of the game. And this is the first time I'm looking at it. So last night I got it to work. It built sort of the initial thing that I told it, just go for it. And I'm trying to figure out, so as you can see here, it's sort of going through multiple loops. So it's like, okay, I've made significant optimizations, and then it goes again. So I'm trying to see how long it worked. So it didn't run that long after I left it alone, probably 20, 30 minutes or something like that. And it was able to produce this version. So I just want to check it out really fast to see kind of how good it was able to make it. Literally posting on X and live streaming at the same time. So on X, I do schedule some of the tweets. So I write them usually, either the night before or the morning, and I have them scheduled to go out. Some of them, and then you can probably tell which ones are scheduled and which ones are just me like randomly popping in there. Like, did you guys see this? One thing, like this morning, I woke up. I actually slept in today. I just needed a little bit of extra sleep. I woke up and somebody created on GitHub a Factorio test to test the different AI models, specifically the reasoning models, like the coder, the ones that are supposed to be good at code. How well are they able to run Factorio? And so the idea is in Factorio, you can't really, like if you create a benchmark about how well it's able to play Factorio, number one, you can't really saturate it because technically you can just infinitely expand. And number two, Factorio a lot of it is kind of about engineering principles, right? So the models that are able to code effectively, there's probably some correlation between their scores on coding and their scores on how well they can play Factorio. In theory, right? Okay, so here is Paperclips, the game. So I gotta say, I mean, it's looking pretty neat. So let's see. So I can purchase Paperclips, or excuse me, I can purchase auto clippers. Does everybody know this game? Like it kind of went viral, but like a while ago. So this is kind of not anything new. One Little Coder has an interesting post on how Manus works. I would like to. I will definitely check it out. Yeah, that guy posts stuff with such insane, like I don't think he sleeps, and I think he like as soon as something comes out, he's like, "Oh my God, here's this new thing," and he's like posting about it. It's crazy. So let me just. So again, I just woke up. This is the first time that I'm seeing this final version of it. Okay, I see. So I just want to see how well everything works. Have I seen Mercury from Inception Labs? I don't think so. Not yet. Okay, people know this. Okay. Yeah, in Paperclips, you are the AI, and what I find absolutely fascinating, like the story in this game, there isn't really like a story, or rather, it's very subtle. Like it's not obvious what's happening, right? Because it doesn't get like spelled out for you, but it's kind of insane. Like if you're paying attention and you kind of realize what's happening, it's like it's nuts. So far this is looking good. So I just want to like let it run. And because there's like stages that you progress through and eventually like going out in space. So the story for those that are not aware of this game. So you're this AI that's able to improve, that's in charge of making paper clips. So you're just trying to sell paper clips, market this paper clips, create more trust, goodwill, and just like try to make money with paper clips. Slowly over time, you start bribing various government officials and stuff like that so you can sell more paper clips. Eventually, you release the hypno drones that basically hypnotize the population of Earth into buying paper clips. Yeah, release the hypno drones. And then you, I guess humanity escapes Earth and goes into space in spaceships, but this AI like goes after them, creating its own battleships and stuff, and just basically chases humanity throughout the entire known space, eventually, destroying everybody and turning every single atom of matter into paper clips, at which point like you win the game. So it's kind of dark. Anyways, let me just leave this running for the time being. Yeah, hey kid, want to try some paper clips? And the other thing that I want to try is the Factorio, I think it's called Factorio Lab. So give me 1 second here. So I'm trying to find the Factorio thing. So it's called Factorio Learning Environment, FLE. All right, so this is it. They have a paper and a GitHub. So Factorio Learning Environment. Oh, we got to check this out. This is very, very cool. So it looks like it's able to do some fairly basic things. You have lab play consisting of 24 structured tasks and open play with unbounded tasks of building the largest factory from scratch on a procedurally generated map. Wow. I am very excited about this. What are we discussing today? I have no idea. So we looked at the OpenAI thing where they introduced several tools that are available through the API. At some point, I do want to test out there. So the operators through the API now, which is I'm very excited about. I got to test that out. I think what we're going to do is probably, do you guys have some creative tests for Manus? Something that's really going to push its abilities. I don't want to do anything too code heavy because, I tried doing, developing a game within it. And if you have to do too many back and forths, I ran out of context and it just kind of crashed. One thing that's really good for is actually doing this sort of deep research and then producing sort of a visual, like a website that visually demonstrates how to do that thing. So if anyone has an idea for a fairly difficult topic that has to be, there's some intricate sort of online research that you have to do to kind of put all the pieces together, that then would be interesting to put into like a visual form on a website. If you have an idea for that, throw it in chat. A 3D modeling exercise. I'm not sure. I don't know. So I'd love to test stuff like that out. The problem is I have, I believe, 5 prompts a day. So that one I'm going to save until they open up the quotas a little bit. So right now I kind of want to test it on stuff where it's not going to, where we can see how well it works. That one I don't even know if it's able to do that. So we're gonna I want to see it do that, but let me wait until I get more quota. on that thing. And I've reached out to the developers, and hopefully they'll unlock some more quota for me. So I like the idea of doing the stock market analysis. Let me ask you this. Are there some stocks that are heavily correlated with something that you can like research online, right? So like where maybe we can test like, is there some publicly available information online that correlates really well to the performance of stocks? Can this thing do an analysis of like how well that data correlates to being able to predict the stock price? Does anybody have anything like that that they would be willing to share? Petrol price with world events might be very good for that. That's okay. Real estate. More specifically, what are we trying? Like, what are we tracking? What to what? Like prices, but to what things are we tracking the prices to? Nuclear energy. Okay. Like one idea is like there's places that track all the ship and plane movements online, right? That's publicly available information, and they show you kind of like the movement of like the tankers and stuff like that. So if you're able to have something that's like meticulously tracking that stuff, you can sometimes predict how well certain companies perform during their earnings based on that publicly available information. Pelosi's portfolio. Yes, that would be very interesting. Yeah, because Pelosi does trade. Well, I guess it's her husband or something like that does the trading, but same thing. But yeah, that would be interesting to see. Rents and mortgages. Okay, that would be interesting. Okay, so we're gonna test. There's some great ideas here. Okay, let me think about that. We'll definitely we've definitely have one of those is going to be a great idea to test out. Can mana self-improve? Somebody got it to replicate itself, I think, basically. So somebody mentioned CoinDesk. Somebody's going to make a boatload of money in crypto with these agents. I pretty much guarantee it. I don't know too much about crypto. Not the whatever heavy duty coins. Not the deep end of that. But I feel like having AI agents like this, that might be actually really interesting, because a lot of this crypto stuff is so fast. It's so real time. I think we're gonna try a crypto thing. I think that's gonna be a good one. Okay, so here's the Factorio Open Play. So reward is the cumulative production score. So as you can see here, oh, I'm so excited about this. Okay. So what do we have here? We have DeepSeek V3, Claude. Can everybody see this? So Claude is number 1 in green. So this looks like it very much correlates to their abilities to code. So, I mean, how well they rank in Factorio is probably going to be very much correlated to how well they can code. Second Sputnik effect. Yeah, I feel like DeepSeek was definitely more of a Sputnik moment, because that is a lot, much more having to do with nations competing for the AI chips, right? And since then, we have, Eric Schmidt and the guy, Alexander Wang of Scale AI, and Dan Hendricks. They put out that paper. and they're not the only ones. There's tons of people are talking about this competition where in the future, sort of the nation's access to AI chips will largely determine its sort of economic viability, how well it can compete and produce stuff. So I feel like Madness does have an effect, but it's probably more like local, more on a company level, right? It's companies competing, whereas DeepSeek was more like that was on a national level. I feel like, right? Because I think the markets that day, like global markets, like 1 trillion down in one day. I mean, that's just the valuations dropped. Man, that's a huge move based on one thing. TSMC all day long for now. How's TSMC doing in terms of transferring over to, because they're going, a lot of it is going to Arizona, right? Research about the second Sputnik and the stocks. Okay, I'll look into it. I would be curious to see. Did it have a big effect? Claude is represented orange, not green. So this top line, if I'm reading correctly, I mean, that's Claude right there. Claude is top line. We got Gemini 2, interestingly. Gemini 2 looks like jumps ahead at the last moment. Llama, GPT-4, DeepSeek V3. Why are they using DeepSeek V3? That's not the reasoning model. Shouldn't they be using, what's the reasoning one? V1? No, R1, that's right. DeepSeek R1. And I'm assuming this is Cloud 3.7. So yeah, but this is the item production. Yeah, I definitely want to be, I want to be testing this stuff out today. This is absolutely phenomenal. R1, yes, thank you. I blanked on that name for a bit. Yeah, so if I set this up, should I do a live stream of this thing just playing? I wonder if it's got an actual, like, where you can see it playing. Okay, so what we wanted to do is we wanted to test out Manus's ability to do research and then represent that research in a website. We're going to do standard effort for now. Ask Manus to create a Pokemon playing agent. That's one of the things that I will be doing. So the people that, so Anthropic, the person there that set up the Pokemon playing agent, he actually had several YouTube videos and he published a lot of stuff online about exactly how he's doing that. And I'm curious to see if we take something like Claude Coder that you can run for, you know, unlimited amount of time. Because here we're limited by, this is still very limited because there's so many people are trying it out. But with Claude Coder, you can just run it 24 hours a day. Can it create some sort of a scaffolding system for, you know, for it to play Pokemon Red? Because it's pretty much spelled out in the documentation about how they did that. So if I can upload that documentation to Claude Coder and be like, hey, figure this out, like do this, could it do that? That would be kind of interesting. Let's for the people that are joining, what's going on? Let me give you a quick summary. Let me just put in a prompt, and then we'll talk about kind of like catch up on what's been happening. So, anybody in crypto right now? Like, the question is, give me the top 3 like hottest things that are happening in crypto right now in terms of like tokens or whatever they're called, whether it's like cryptocurrency or whatever the new thing is where it's like just tokens, what are they called? They don't have like value behind them or whatever. versus who are the big influencers, whether that's publications or people in the market that talk about this, like who's like pushing this stuff. So give me like, if somebody can give me like 2 or 3 tokens and 2 or 3 influencers that are online on X or YouTube or whatever. Pi, Aptos, Solana. Solana is massive, right? It's kind of like Ethereum. It's like a competitor to Ethereum. Okay, so let's do Hak2. Okay. Okay, let's try this. All right, so Pi, Aptos. I better check before I just type that in. So Pi looks legit at first glance. Aptos. Okay, one more. Grizzly, what's going on? Turbo. I don't want to do the political coins just because that's a little bit too. Wait, which one did I just say? So Cake, Turbo. Okay. Pancake. All right. Let's go with those, I guess. Okay, so Pi, Aptos, and Pancake. And then give me 3 big influencers or publications that are not just shilling their own coin, but kind of have a trust in the market. Like who are the people that are talking about this? Like, I mean, there's like Coin Bureau, that guy. He's probably a big one. Like, what are some big people that have a big presence through what they're talking about, what they're pushing? Does that make sense? Like, who are big online players that move markets? Who are the market movers? BitConnect, is that oh, Bankless, the Bankless guys? Okay. BitConnect, is that the scam one where like BitConnect and then they're like all in jail? Is that the one? I briefly followed this in 2020 just because it was so entertaining. Elon, that's interesting. Elon does have a big influence, but he's not really like, he doesn't do multiple coins really. Lark Davis, KGJ for NFT games. All right, and we're gonna do this. Binance CEO. Is that guy like in hiding or something like that, right? Because he was accused of something, right? Tech lead still does that stuff. Okay. The U.S. government. Yeah. All right. So compare the price. It's the price movement of those coins. Okay, so I think this is I think this is going to be great. Okay, so I'm asking Manus to give me an analysis of the following crypto tokens: Pi, Aptos, and Pancake. Compare the price movements of those coins to big online influencers and publications talking about them. We are trying to find patterns in which publications influence the price of the coins the most. Create a website in a pixel art graphic style that shows the latest developments with charts and graphs. And actually, okay, so you're building on Aptos. Let's do this. So, and we're going to say, and any other. I'm going to say online chatter. All right, so let's start here. So Audio Vision is saying, like, if you're in crypto since 2010, like me, you see the patterns. Yeah. So so first and foremost, so like I don't trade crypto. I don't do anything like that. I'm not suggesting anybody do. However, I just really see this as a very interesting opportunity to test agents like this because they're global, they're unregulated, and most of the conversations, most of the events, everything is online, right? So it's not like a company where there's a lot of stuff that's like happening in real life, right? Right. So if you're analyzing stocks, you might have to look at, is this factory completed, right? Or people use satellite imagery to kind of spy on the competitors, on the people whose stocks they're following. With these crypto tokens, pretty much 100%. Yeah, no, none of this is financial advice. I hope I don't have to say that, but obviously, right? So basically, I'm about to destroy the crypto industry with one prompt. I think yes, we can build full websites, and this thing is going to build it at the end. This thing is going to build the whole thing, and I'll show you another prompt that I did where it built the whole website, and it was pretty good. But the point is, this is where I think this thing could shine because it could really access all of the information online that's available to most of the people, to the traders, and see if it can spot patterns or some correlations between various events to see what moves the markets, right? So it's like if you find that, like on YouTube, there's this guy, Coin Bureau, right? So he's a pretty big influential channel, right? So he posts on a different topic each day. So let's say you find that every single time the guy posts, that moves the markets. Well, you can probably create some sort of a script that, the second that he posts, that transcribes his video, does a sentiment analysis. And if he's like, oh my God, this is the next big thing or whatever, I'm sure he doesn't do that, but like you kind of do a sentiment analysis. If it's good, you're like, all right, buy, $1,000 of that coin, and all of that happens automatically, right? So it's kind of a trading bot that's sitting there trading based on that one sort of thing, that one signal. That's because of how unregulated this is and how people, like, it's still so new, both these AI agents, but also crypto is somewhat new, relatively speaking to like the stock market or whatever. I feel like there's going to be tons of ways where people make money, and we're going to be looking at that, not necessarily so like we can do it or whatever, because I don't want to touch this. This is just a very, I don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. How about that? I'll say it that way. Hey, Cole, what's going on? The Easter egg. So are you talking about the document, the AGI release final _final, whatever? Is that what you're talking about? Somebody mentioned it, but no, I wasn't paying attention to the screen as much. I was listening, but yeah, let me know if I missed anything. But yeah, this is just, so I'm purely looking at this from the idea of like, how can we showcase how well these agents are? I think crypto is going to be a phenomenal sort of battlefield for that. Sorry, what am I saying? AI agents, things like Manus are going to be a phenomenal battlefield for that, like a benchmark. Like, is it able to analyze the crypto markets in real time and make decisions that could potentially lead to alpha, as they say, profitable buying and selling strategies? I don't think this channel is going to turn into a crypto AI channel. I really don't think so. I do tend to kind of get obsessed with certain things. So maybe, I don't know. We'll see. All right. The remarkable N. I'm a simple and lazy man. I just want $1 million. Yes. Yes, that's something I think we can all relate to. So somebody asked if this thing can build websites. It can, and they are very, very good. So somebody earlier asked about, is there a place that sort of lists all of the AI generated games, because more and more interest is now kind of being shown in that direction. So this is flypeter.com. So I'm sure people have seen this. They added a bunch of different new stuff. So this is it, right? So you kind of like fly this plane. It's a simulation, and surprisingly smooth, surprisingly good. You can shoot things down. As you can see here, there's advertisements. There's advertisements on the moon. There's advertisements on pretty much everything. You can't really see it. It's nighttime, but he basically has companies advertising their services on there. And he was making, so Peter Levels, I think his name is, he was on the Lex Friedman podcast at some point. So he's using Cursor and Grok and Claude 3.7. And so he built that thing, largely vibe coding, as they're saying. And so he got up to 50,000 a month in advertisements. Yeah, so I tested out. It's smooth because AI can code it. So I've tested out building a drifting game, a racing game where you drift in Claude 3.7. And it did it really well. But then like the drifting mechanics were bad. And just within a few prompts, I was like, okay, add some smoke effects. Make the drifting more gradual. And I said, like, do it like 1/3 of what you're doing, right? So I did, with a few prompts, I did these tweaks. And all of a sudden, like the next time I tried it, it just felt incredible. It was like buttery smooth. The drifting mechanics were just perfect. And I was like, wow. Because with just a few prompts in English, it optimized it to where it goes from like kind of janky, where you're like, ugh, this is not good, to when your brain's like, ooh, that feels good. It feels good to drift around the corner. So yeah, it's pretty incredible. So basically here I asked it, so research 5 to 10 games like that and put together a bunch of information on how they were created. So if you wanted to recreate that game, you need to know kind of like, okay, so what kind of a language are we using to build it? What kind of like, how did the creator of that game, how did they build it? And I said, do that research, get all the resources about it, and then create a website with a 90s video game kind of aesthetic feel to it that kind of puts everything together. So it probably ran 20, 30, 40 minutes, something like that. And then it was like, okay, do you want me to post this to the internet, to the public network? I was like, yeah, go for it. And here is that thing. And it's really good. I was really impressed with how they did it. So for the games that are hosted online, you can just click on it. It'll take you to the game. For things that are not hosted online, still provides a lot of information, kind of like which AI tools were used to build it, the creation process. So this guy, he used Grok's deep research for research and planning, which is one of those things where I tested this out. This works really well. So you basically do a 2-step approach where step 1 is you just have it do all the research, go online, think through all the game mechanics, think through all the whatever packages and libraries it might need, just really sit there and think about how to build a game. And then step 2 is you give the output of that to the coder and you're like, okay, code this game up. And that seemed to work very, very well, right? And this was built on Grok's extended think mode or Cloud 3.7. And it sort of gives you everything that you need. It also gives you from the creator, like where you can kind of follow up what he's doing, and also some highlights like this got multiple Elon Musk retweets, etc. So I was very impressed with this because again, so this is the output after about 20 minutes of work. So it's completely kind of AFK time for me. So I put this in and I walk away. I come back 20 minutes and there's a live website ready to go with all of that information. And now actually what I'm going to do is do this. I'm going to say, let's add 5 more games. So I'm just going to say, let's research and add 5 more games like this to the website. Actually, let me step it up a little bit because last time we did 5. So I'm curious. Let me bump it up to 8. Because there's probably some upper limit to how many things it can do in one fell swoop. Also, as the website gets bigger and more complicated, we might run into issues with context windows. So I'm gonna start increasing sort of how much I'm asking you to do little by little to kind of find where it starts breaking. Yeah, this was with Manus. So for people that are just joining us, let me get some water. 1 second. And it made me this universal paper clips game overnight. So I went to sleep. I set it to make this game. I went to sleep. I woke up and it made it. So now I just have to test it out. Actually, what I need to add to this game is some sort of a troubleshooting, sort of like a developer mode, where I can go in and just fast forward through the stages so I can test them out. All right, so as you can see here, Manus is working. Oh yeah, so basically for the people that missed the OpenAI stream, they're making a lot of the tools that they have available now available through the API. So for example, the deep research and the web search functionality, some of those things are available in the API. And also, which is I think very exciting, the operator, right? So the browser, its ability to use the browser to look at what's happening through screenshots and click on things, that is now available through the API. So we're definitely going to be at some point. There's so many things that I want to test because we have Manus. We have now the open source versions of this thing coming out. Then do I have an invite code? No, I just checked. I don't have one yet. I was going to post a few in here if I saw them. Nothing so far. Benno, thank you for the $2 super chat. Curious how much the flying game costs to make. You know what? That's a great question. I don't know off the top of my head. If anybody knows, did Peter Levels ever say how much it costs to make, and maybe even how much it sort of costs to run? Because at this point, he's probably got some cost to actually host that thing. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? Benno, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I'm going to tell Manus to see if there's any information online about the cost to develop these games, and we're going to add that to the prompt. Okay, so I'm going to say, if you find any information about how much it costs to create these games, add it to the info page about the game. For example, if the developer mentioned how much he paid in API costs to develop it, include that. So let me see. Please remind me. But we're going to be Diostra. Hi, welcome. Halo from Indonesia. Welcome to the chat, to the live stream. Yeah, so remind me, we're going to go back and see if it found, what happened? Why did you do that? Search for additional. Okay, we broke it. You broke it, Benno. I'm just kidding. Okay, so this is apparently, we ran into that issue where it's like extremely long content windows, context windows. Okay. Well, that kind of sucks, but okay. Let me think about let me think about this. So yeah, okay. This is a little bit disappointing because I really wanted to be able to continuously improve on those prompts. So far, it's seeing that so far it looks like if you can only go back and forth so many times before it breaks. So this is twice this happened, and it greetings from Turkey, greetings, Sarat. So Shi Lin. Okay, you're talking to, okay. Does that have to do anything with agents? I wonder, is there a way to make AI agents that are able to do that, the mining the first block or whatever? Is there a way that this could intersect with that, I wonder? Okay, so what I was saying is I wish that there was a way to go back and forth with this thing, because, for example, with that AI website that it created, it would be very, very cool to be able to continuously update it. So similar to how, so Manus is a one-shot deal, then maybe not one shot, but like not more than a few shots. Like I feel like, also maybe it has to do with this particular one because it's I made it and then now it's like more than 24 hours later that I'm doing the follow-up. Maybe that's where it's running into issues. So I'm not sure. So yeah, it's not a one-shot deal, but there's definitely some very small, there's definitely limitations, let's say that. Yeah, so Benno, it seems like a pressing issues for those on middle income. It's fine, but poverty doesn't really allow for $15 per million tokens. And that's why I think it's so important that we have open source AI, right? Because at that point, if it gets to the point where it's like throughout history, you had things that you can buy that produced income, right? If you have a lot of money, you buy a factory or you open up a business. If you're in a certain environment, you can buy like some milk producing animal and then like sell the milk or sell the eggs, whatever, right? So in the future, if we have open source software, buying a nice rig with whatever NVIDIA card, that then is going to allow you to output something like code or images or video or text or whatever, if you can monetize that somehow, that seems like an incredible opportunity for a lot of people all over the world, right? Because imagine if, let's say I need some B-roll for my videos, or I need somebody to help me develop a game or some sort of scripts, right? I'd love to be able to just pay somebody that's sitting there doing this to help me, right? So the amount of demand for high quality code, I feel like might be maybe not infinite, but there's a very high ceiling on that. So I get what you're saying, like where you're like, if a game like that costs hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars to create, that's obviously restricting a large portion of the population, of the global population from participating. Whereas if you're doing it open source on your computer, it's just kind of like basically the cost of electricity, right? It's the initial cost to set it up, and then it's basically the cost of electricity. That's like a game changer, isn't it? That's like such a massive like paradigm shift, as they say. John Ferris, thank you so much for the super chat. Can Manus integrate into Firebase or Supabase? Does anybody know the answer to that question? Here's the thing, and I haven't looked at this yet, but so there's a lot of open source solutions that are coming online that are, they're Manus clones, it seems like, or something similar to that. That can probably integrate to like whatever you're looking for. So I haven't tested it yet to see. I'm going to do a side-by-side comparison of the open source Manus versus Manus. If the open source version right now is as good as this, I would be kind of blown away, I got to say. Is this done? Okay, this is done. Very cool. So, yeah, so with Manus, I know for a fact that it will, if you need to have some API calls or whatever, code with API calls, it will do that for you. We did a different thing where it did, I did this thing where it basically used OpenAI API, 11 Labs API, and HeyGen API. And so it created that with the API calls to those things to create this thing that I'm looking for. So I know it can do that. But if you're talking about like some sort of a integration, I mean, this is like a web app that you don't have too much customization that you can do on here. So really depends, I guess. So I would say probably not, but the open source stuff, I'm sure you'd be able to do that. So I hope that answers your question. If anybody knows for that specific thing, yeah. So yeah, instead of Cole, like instead of asking if we can integrate, we should be asking if we can build it. That's another thing. That's yeah. So we're like, I feel like we're entering like a new territory where some of these approaches, because in the past it's like, does it integrate? Now it's almost like, there might be like different words for how to like do this stuff now. What is the Anthropic thing? MPV? What is it? What's the that everybody's talking about? Model protocol, MCP, model context protocol, and stuff like that. Like more and more, we're going to be getting to the point where a lot of this stuff is going to be just integrated through the thing that you're using itself. It's going to build whatever you need it to build, integrate, API calls, whatever. Okay, so this is MCP, right? Is that what I said? Yeah, MCP, model context protocol. Yeah, so if Claude 4 costs 10 cents per million, all bets are off. Yeah, so either if the proprietary models drop really cheap, which if you look at the DeepSeek tokens, so they're something like 95% cheaper than OpenAI, and they posted where their profit margins are something huge, like 80%. So the point is, like, it seems like it could be really, really, really cheap. So I think right now there's kind of a little bit of a scarcity around these things. So yeah, it might be expensive now. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it's going to be the case where like the latest, greatest, like hot, shiny new thing is going to be expensive, but everything that's 6 months behind is going to just drop off in price very rapidly. Andrew Cartwright. Yeah, I mean, that name sounds familiar. You know what? Okay, so I think what's interesting is one of the first, when ChatGPT just came out, I think his video popped up, was like, here's how to use ChatGPT for business or whatever. And I remember it was like going crazy, millions of views. I clicked on it and I'm like, that's what kind of one of the things that alerted me to this idea of kind of ChatGPT. It was right around the time it was coming out. I haven't seen too much of his videos since then, but I'll check it out if it's interesting. Wonder how long it will take to connect Manus to local dev environments. Would be cool if they follow their approach and allow public add-ons built by community. Then also hard for competition to pick up. Yeah, I think. Yeah, thank you so much for the super chat, Moritz. I appreciate that. So yeah, it seemed that's the thing is like for a lot of these companies, there's not a lot of like there's no moat or not a lot of a moat, not much of a moat, and so the way that you kind of like get around that is you try to build the community, bring the users, right? It's all about kind of like acquiring users, getting everybody on your thing, and that's why I think the OpenAI live stream today was in response to Manus directly. Because notice what they put out. They put out the functionality to do research online, but they also put out the functionality to do to use the operator. And literally the Indian developer guy, I forget his name, but he was saying like you can run this on, you know, your Linux or your operating system or your virtual machine. And so they're literally sitting there saying like, here's the thing that you need to build Manus or something similar. That's my takeaway from it, right? Because Manus was pretty impressive because it's sitting there. It's got its own terminal command line in Ubuntu, right? So it's running all the commands. Cloud Coded does something similar. And so, yeah, it seems like this technology is going to be replicated. The question is, which pieces are we going to be using? Is it going to be some open source like browser use, or is it going to be operator? Again, if operator, their ability to interact with the browser, interact with the computer is head and shoulders above anything else, which it might be, right, from what we've seen. You know, they might be getting all the users, and then all the replicas of Manus and stuff like that will be built in some part on OpenAI's technology on their infrastructure. So it's going to be very interesting to see. Huang Win is saying, "I buy WorldCoin. Am I stupid?" So, in terms like so, no financial advice on his channel, but I think that with WorldCoin, the interesting thing about it is they did present a real problem that's unsolved, and that is, you know, as we're using these AI agents, more people will be building swarms of these things to go and do stuff online. So there's the idea of like, how do we make sure that each moment, each person, how do we know when it's a real human on the other side of that? There's a name for that. It's after a sci-fi book. I think it's like a female's name. I'm blanking on the name, but it's like, how do we make sure that one person isn't sort of presenting themselves as a million different people online? And WorldCoin, in part, tries to solve that issue, but it's also got this crypto token associated with it, and that's still an open problem, right? So if they don't solve it, we still have to solve it. So right, so in other words, like if I like, for example, right now, Manus is probably dealing with this problem right now themselves. They want to give out as many welcome codes as possible, but they can't just post them online because then one person might grab all of them, right? Use some sort of a script to just grab all those things, create 5 different accounts, etc. So if we have, and of course the sort of the other extreme of that is, having to pay, like using a credit card, like on Twitter/X, how do you get the check mark? Well, you pay. And that prevents people from just creating a million different accounts because each one is tied to, either a phone number or a credit card. Or, even if you go further down the line, you can use a government ID of some sort. But here's the thing. We don't necessarily... Wes, can you prove your humanity real quick for us? I had this joke where it's like in the future, in order for people to prove their humanity on like live streams and whatever, they're going to have to say something that say or do something that the AI models can't, which is at this point pretty much just like something like horrible, something that's some horrible thing that most models they can't say due to usage policies. So it's like, in the future people will start their conversations by just like saying the worst things they can imagine, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, let's continue our polite conversation from here. And yes, WorldCoin assumes, that's the other part of it, is the whole UBI thing. And so a lot of people in a lot of different parts of the world are getting their eyeballs scanned through the orb and getting into that system. And it also seems like they're launching some sort of a payment transfer thing through it. So yeah. Yeah, the orb iris scanning, you go in person and then they scan your eye, you get some little, like encrypts that information somehow. It's supposed to be private to where you can't, like they have a whole thing about why it's private and why it's okay, why it's good. Still a lot of people have like obvious issues with it. It does seem very dystopian. My take is like it's trying to solve real problems. The way that it's going about it remains to be seen how like cool that is going to be if it catches on or whatever. Like I don't know, but those are still open problems that are still yet to be solved. Sigil attack, that's what it's called. So a sigil attack is where one person can create a million different profiles or pose as a million different people online. So, okay, sorry. We were looking at crypto token analysis. That's right. So here's the thing. So one thing that's sort of obvious to me now, or not obvious, but it seems like maybe the website that I asked it for is the same as the previous website. So here's what it did when I said pixel art style website. Here's what it did when we asked for 90s video game style. They're very similar. So now the next thing that I got to test is like to see, is it able to produce a lot of like different sort of generations of websites, or is it kind of like has a few go-to styles? So something to test out. So normalized price chart comparison of those 3 tokens that we've talked about. So starting at 100 and kind of like how they've been moving. And it has those things, those specific coins. Okay, but the question was, okay, so this I would give it a B because it did capture some of the prompt in that it was able to do some charts of the tokens. Okay, this is good, but we really wanted to see how this correlates to specific online events or online influencers. Okay. So I'm saying here, let's add graphs on how big YouTube and X accounts affect the price. For example, if they post good news, does the price react to that? That was the other part of the prompt, which it didn't quite nail. The other interesting thing about this is like if they're just doing API calls to Claude 3.7, it just feels like they're like just burning through a lot of money. Like they're melting their credit cards, basically. I mean, if there's however many users they have on there, tens of thousands, like all doing stuff like this, that's going to cost a considerable amount of money. Yeah, I think Tommaso is saying that they like it that I'm prompting it about crypto. Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting intersection because of how much information is available online, how deep it is, how complicated it is, how real time it is. So that's going to be a great sort of battleground to benchmark these AI agents, because it's forced to rely not on its own data, but rather on the search, how well it's able to search, to find information, to kind of process that information. So yeah, I think we're going to be using crypto quite a bit, or any real-time events. So the other one is keeping track of these AI-generated games, right? So that's going to be another like interesting thing. So basically anything that's happening in real time, where there's not tons of data from the past, I think those are going to be great tests for these models. Oh, Shilin, you need to create a social graph of who's announcing the same time. These guys usually have telegrams to coordinate drops. That's really good. Can we have these AI agents find patterns in when people are like cross-promoting stuff or when they're like coordinating various things? I don't know if everyone has seen the CoffeeZilla's recent posts where he kind of dives deep into, and he's been doing this for a while, but he's kind of like diving deep into some of the crypto promotions of these things, how people basically like snipe these things. So as a wave of people is coming in buying, there's people that are like the insiders, they're just like selling. And it's a way to rapidly make money. Obviously, maybe not illegal, right? Because we don't have regulations around this, but you know, shady, I would say. I mean, definitely there's tons of issues with it. The latest OpenAI API changelog mentions O3 Mini Pro. So we have the O3 Mini High. O3 Mini Pro sounds like it would be like the next level up. That's interesting. All right. Okay, I will be probably getting off in a little bit here. In maybe 10, 15 minutes. I just want to finish this up. Isn't a rug pull illegal? My understanding is that there's not a lot of regulations with these tokens. So there's a lot of stuff you can do that you can't do with securities, but stocks and such. But I don't think these are regulated like that. I haven't, or at least, I mean, based on what CoffeeZilla was saying, it seems like it just doesn't get prosecuted. So I have no idea. Oh yeah, so people mentioned the human brain cells powered processor. Somebody mentioned the was it biological computing, whatever. There's this video online, and I've covered it in one of my previous videos, where they took human neurons, they connected to a what are they called? Like the motherboard, the circuit board, right? And so they were able to send it like pleasing signals when it did something right, and like negative staticky signals when it did something wrong. And through that kind of like, ghost in the machine, exactly. And through that reinforcement learning, they were able to get it to play Doom. And I believe they used some sort of a combination of human neurons, rat neurons, etc. Yeah, brain in a vat, exactly. It's weird, right? It sounds weird because, I mean, we're taking human brain cells, and then like, oh, if it does something quote unquote wrong, we shoot it with that static sound because it doesn't like that. I mean, crossing into some weird territory, I feel like, on one hand. On the other hand, I mean, assuming, there's no pain, there's no, it's like this weird gray area. Like, is this okay what we're doing? Because obviously if we're treating it just like cells and it has no consciousness, it has no pain, there's no nerve receptors and stuff like that, then yeah, I mean, I guess it's fine. But could we be causing, I mean, can you imagine like waking up one day and you realize that your brain is just in some machine and you're forced to play Doom 24 hours a day for like thousands of years? I just saw Severance, that new movie TV show on Apple TV. I feel like it's pretty good. Please, no spoilers, but have you seen it? Do you like it? I'm a few episodes in, and I'm like interested. It's captivating. But I think they're sort of thinking kind of along the same lines, like being trapped in some pocket universe or something like that. In this case, it's like it has to do with memories, but give the shrooms arms and legs. They did that with those little, where they were able to use the mycelium, the shroom root system, to control robots. It's kind of crazy. Do you think open source madness could be made to autonomously self-improve? I mean, if you can set up like a reinforcement, like if you can set up like, what is it self-improving towards, right? So some sort of a reinforcement learning thing, like if you can give it the reward function, if you can specify that, I don't see why not. My understanding is with a lot of the stuff where general intelligence is needed, like we improve that through making bigger and better large language models that are just more intelligent. And then we use, so like the GPT 4.5, right? This next big thing, it's the 10x improvement over the 4, right? They're gonna use reinforcement learning on top of that to turn it into a reasoning model. And that's when we're gonna get the 04, the 05, like that next stage thing. Can Manus self-improve? Yeah, you would have to like specify towards what, right? So towards what objective. But as we improve the models, like it's just gonna improve across the board and get better. Where it really kind of like the whole thing, like I feel like goes off the rails is at what, so if we're using reinforcement learning to improve these large language models, and so we're creating the synthetic data that it gets trained on and it becomes better at reasoning, at what point do these models get better at training themselves than we are able to? Because that's where things get fascinating. I don't have an invitation code. I checked at the beginning of the stream to see if there's one that I could like post in the stream. I don't have one, unfortunately. They're extremely hard to come by so far. Yesterday, OpenAI published some research into, I forget what they call it, but basically, so you have the outputs and you have the chain of thought, right? The thought of these models, kind of the test time compute. So it's thinking about the question, and then it outputs the answer. And what they find is there's oftentimes when these models, they cheat or they try to fudge the numbers or they do something like nefarious. And this OpenAI research, they were trying to figure out like, okay, what if we penalize those thoughts, right? So if we tell it, okay, write this code and make it work. And then you see the model thinking, oh man, they actually have this in the paper. I have a video coming out about it later today. You see in the paper, it's like, oh man, that's a difficult unit test to pass. What if I can just fudge the numbers? And it goes and it reward hacking, right? So it kind of just like figures out how to cheat the system in order to get the reward without doing the complicated work. And so the question is, how do we prevent it from doing that? And so the OpenAI team, they tried to do reinforcement learning, like actually penalizing the thoughts, the bad thoughts, right? So when we give it a task and it starts thinking, I wonder if I can hack this thing, if I can cheat to win or whatever, like we go, nope. And we negative reinforcement that thought. And what they found was, thought policing for AIs. But here's the thing, here's what they found, kind of scary. It works to a degree, like it works. It actually helps optimize the model to do better work. The problem is it becomes somehow adept at hiding those thoughts. So it eventually doesn't think about doing the bad thing. It still does the bad thing, but it doesn't think through about doing the bad thing. And so what you see is it still does the bad thing, but it becomes like undetectable. And they kind of like talk about why that's happening. And this paper is basically like a warning to a lot of the other AI labs about like, hey, like this is going to seem like a great way to like optimize these models, but don't do it because we are really losing our ability to have interpretability into what they're doing, like the visibility into their thoughts, our ability to catch them, if they're doing something wrong, etc. So it's interesting. I have a video coming out about that today. But yeah, it's like, as Pink Floyd would say, we don't need no thought control. All right. So here's the influencer impact that we asked it to do. And it's got a full sort of analysis. This is pretty cool. Okay. Oh, this is interesting. Okay, so it found that CEOs of major cryptocurrency exchanges have significant influence on token prices due to their industry position and large following. So somebody mentioned about the Binance CEO, he's on here, Coinbase CEO, Kraken, etc. So look at that. So it's saying that major exchange CEOs, they have an average impact of 15%. The impact duration is 3 days. And decay rate 70%. Whereas if we compare, so this is the exchanges, the big exchanges, the CEOs of those places versus crypto project founders, so the people that are actually launching the coin, average impact 8. So a smaller impact than the like the Binance CEO. Why does it say simulated price reaction? I would have to dig deep into what it did in order to see how it's getting these numbers. Because if it's just hallucinating, yeah, this might take a little bit to unwind a little bit. Celebrities, average impact 12%. And then platform, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. So YouTube has the most impact, followed by Twitter, followed by TikTok. So, I mean, this is interesting data. So it's basically saying that the major exchange CEOs are sort of the biggest influence. Here's how the 3 tokens that we looked at, how they are susceptible to it. Yeah, but really what we want to see is, yeah, so here's all the research that it did. So in order for us to really understand what it's talking about, we would have to go in and kind of go through this. So off the top of my head, it looks like they do have a good collection of influencers here. Vitalik, Binance. Well, they have the FTX founder here, so I don't know how much influence he's got anymore. Elon Musk, and Andreas Antonopoulos. Pompliano. Is Pompliano still talking about this stuff? The Winklevoss, Mike Novogratz, Coinbase CEO, Justin Sun. Yeah, I mean, I would have to sit there and kind of like look over what it did. That's the problem with, I think, going to be with AI, because it's like, it's so good at outputting information and charts and stuff like that. It seems legit. But then it's like, how do you verify that this is true? So it's almost like you need another AI model to kind of like verify it a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, I can't at a glance say if it's how good this is or not. It certainly seems like it did the work, right? But how does that translate into how accurate it is? Not 100% sure. It looks like it's doing good work just at a glance. It looks like it's doing all of the things that, you know what I mean? So it came up with the list of influencers. It's getting, when they mentioned the names of those things, it's saving them in like a JSON file. Then it's doing some sort of a chart using that data. So it's like, it looks legit, but who knows? What was that code? So, I mean, it wrote all the code for trying to figure out which influencers move the prices of the token the most. So Grizzly's asking, so they're in the middle of a bachelor's degree of computer science. Is it worth it to finish? So I would not. So first of all, just take everything that I say with a grain of salt. I have no idea. For me, for the people that are a little bit more entrepreneurial, this is like going to be the golden age, I think. So if for the people that are just looking for like a stable, high-paying job, I think in the past, if you could code, if you could do software development, you can like get a good job and get paid and it's stable. Like that lasted for like a long time. Is that going to be the case going forward? It's really hard to tell. Because it depends on, are these tools are they going to remain just tools and they're going to like enable developer productivity, or they're just going to shoot way past that and they're going to be a displacement force. And this is where like a lot of people are fighting about right now. You see these back and forth, people fighting online saying this and that or whatever. Some people are saying it's never going to replace the high-level developers. Some people are saying that, of course it is. Like, it's really hard to tell. Sheila saying, learn to code, it changes how you think. I wouldn't change anything that you're doing. I would still go and acquire the skills and do all of that. I wouldn't necessarily change anything. I think the foundation is still very, very important and valuable. Coding and understanding how it works is phenomenal. I think what's going to happen is somebody made a comment on an earlier video. They said coders are not going to be needed, but software engineers are going to be more in demand. Meaning that, so if you think about like typing each little letter and making sure that the syntax is correct and all the brackets and whatever are correct, that's probably not going to be as important. Right, that meticulous attention to whatever is not going to be important. But if you zoom out, kind of that like broad understanding of how stuff works, how to put it together, how to test it, like the engineering principles, like that's going to be huge. That's going to be huge. So again, my thing is, yes, so everybody's saying learn to code 100%. Learn as much as you can. Also keep in mind that it's like this thing is coming for everybody, right? We're talking about coding right now, but it's coming for all professions. I think if you're in tech or computer science, you're in a much better position than anybody else. I wouldn't, pivot out of this and go do something else. Absolutely not. I would stay here. I would keep learning. I would keep doing it. And in your spare time, do projects like this. Use Claude Coder, use Cursor, figure out how, with GitHub, a lot of the AI adjacent projects. Just keep learning, keep doing. I think this is going to be a time when, for a lot of people, this is going to be the golden age of how much you can do, what you can achieve. If you're in tech, you got the tech skill, like you're in the right place. I wouldn't go anywhere else. The only concern is the industry is going to get flooded with a lot more people that are able to code. And that does have a kind of, in general, a downward pressure on the salaries. So in the past, if you have somebody that's an okay coder, they might have had a good salary and stable. That might get affected. Maybe, probably, right? That just seems like supply and demand type of thing, right? But I don't think anything changes. Like I think more and more, like you got to think a little bit more entrepreneurially. You got to keep learning. But like if you're in tech, if you're computer science, no, I would not change anything. I would keep going, keep learning, don't stop. Just keep growing, keep expanding, and also think about how can you do more for yourself as an entrepreneur, as a business sort of person, right? So you're not, instead of trying to think about like, how do I sell my time to some company that pays me to sit there and code, how do I create things that I can sell or to the market directly? Like, again, like the Fly Peter guy, is doing $50,000 a month with a little simple airplane game. Tons of people are going to need to learn how to do all this stuff. There's going to be tons of ways that people can provide their services and do things. So yeah, that's kind of try to get as much money as possible and pivot to the investor class. I mean, that's definitely the dream, and certainly I feel like the ability to invest in some of these AI startups, like if you have access to some of that or working for the AI startups, that's going to be massive, life-changing money for people that are able to get in the right places. Also, I feel like, with startups and stuff like that, before maybe they were strictly looking for the best coders. Now more and more it's going to be more like broader skill sets, right? So it's not just like because I mean, like at Google back in the days, they used to have this thing where you would have to or a lot of companies, where you were coding, software engineering, whatever, you would have to write out this stuff by hand. You know what I mean? Write out kind of how you would do this by hand. And I think more and more it's now going away from like memorizing the syntax or whatever to more like, does your brain work well with complexity and reasoning and how to do that stuff? So I hope that makes sense. I think learning to code, learning a lot of the tech stuff is good. Just keep going. Electrical engineering, whatever, just keep going. I would not stop. I would not pivot. I would not do any of that. The only thing I would say is think more about how do you make money outside of a W-2, outside of a salary, other than getting paid for trading your time for money. Are there other ways in which you can get paid using your skills? I would start thinking more about that. Maybe that's the only thing I would change, and that's just my 2 cents. Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, sorry, I kind of went on a huge tangent there, but it's an interesting time, and I think a lot of people are scared, but it's like, I think overall it's going to be very, very good. Okay, I think I'm going to go eat. I did not eat today. I just had my coffee. But I hope everyone enjoyed this. I'm going to be posting a video on the OpenAI's thought control paper, which I thought was fascinating. I got to take a look at the brain cells in machines. That's very interesting. I got to test out. I still have yet to post the video on Claude Coder, which is absolutely amazing. We have to take a look at the factorial learning environment. Let me see if I can get on screen. Yep. So I definitely want to get this up and running and check it out, because that's a very interesting benchmark for these things. And there's like 50 more. I'm so behind on everything. There's too much stuff happening. I can't cover it all at once. So I'm just trying to stay afloat here. Thank you so much for subbing. If you're not subbed to the main channel, please do. Thank you so much for joining. You guys are terrific, and I'll see you next time.